Into Zephyr Spring, Part 2. I'm considering again what my mom told me when I was a boy having nightmares. That if I was ever frightened, I should think about how I got to where I was, and if I couldn't remember, she said that meant that I was dreaming. I'm not exactly frightened right now, but I would like to know just what is going on. If only I could go back to the time that my mom told me this and pester her about it, I would inquire about whether or not the opposite is true also. If I can remember where I came from, would that mean deterministically that I'm awake? Or would it simply imply that I'm unable to rule out the possibility of being asleep? Given that earlier, upon my contemplation of the memory involving my mom, I could recall, albeit vaguely and with no dearth of mystery, having arrived in front of this dreamlike house in part by foot and in part by train, I suspected that the latter was more likely and decided to consider alternative means for determination. That's why I developed a theory, not totally new to my line of thought, only pulled from a dusty corner of my mind, which progressed the idea that there may be a second method for an individual to determine whether or not they are dreaming. Namely, that they should close their eyes and reopen them, and if there is a stark change in the reality afterwards, one can conclude that they are, realistically, asleep. But this had the same problem. It offered deterministic proof in the face of certain evidence, but offered zero additional progression if, say, after the opening of the eyes, one was not able to determine whether or not any changes have occurred. In addition to this, when I first walked into the room with the hot spring earlier, I considered briefly whether its uncanniness meant that I was dreaming. But my conscience did away with that idea relatively swiftly, pointing out that strange things happen more often than anyone generally imagines they will. So really, none of my knowledge hitherto has done me any good. But as I sit here, squatting near the edge of the pool and taking in its warmth, which, I must say, I'm beginning to admire, pedaling my fingertips across the overgrown vines running across the ground, I can't help but wonder whether or not the advice I just received from my ex-wife is any good either. If I was awake, I would not question whether or not I was dreaming, and, therefore, I must be dreaming now, as evidenced by my questioning. Or so goes the logic I acquired from her. But if I'm really dreaming, why would a character in my dream help me to discover it? Is that because it is the case that one's own mind, one's self-conscious, does its best to communicate everything it knows to the dreamer? Perhaps I could be convinced of that, but I had always thought of dreams as being the deep repressions of the self-conscious, only to be found upon arduous digging, because dreams were machinations which hid the truth from light of reality at every opportunity. But I've been wrong plenty of times before, and I could just as easily be wrong again. And what about, for instance, a situation where the hypothetical dreamer or awake person was just generally foggy of mind for whatever reason, and or was just simply lost in several possible senses of the word, just as I am now? Wouldn't it be possible then that a person in this sort of state would need help from an outside entity to determine if they were awake or dreaming? But oh to hell, there's no one here to help me anyways. The entrances and therefore exits to this pool have been sealed before me. My old lady and the old man are nowhere to be found. I am alone. Somehow, I think it might be becoming even steamier in here, unless I'm losing my mind. It's just so warm, and my vision is going, my energy is going. I think I'll just have a seat on the floor instead of squatting. Just slip my feet into the water. Just my feet. There we go. Oh, that's better. Much easier on the legs. Oh, the temperature of the water is so nice, actually. Just have to remember to keep my back straight, that old thing. Man, my ex-wife used to get on to me about that. Straighten up, she would say. Drove me crazy. I'm looking at the pool now. I'm considering the ripples my feet make as they move slowly back and forth. The obvious warmth, the depth of the water, even the depth, which is something that under normal circumstances would almost assuredly leave me paralyzed in fear. It all just seems so alluring in this moment, like I could just slip in, and let go. Maybe then all my questions will be answered, somehow. Maybe all my woes will be solved. Yes, I'm sure of it. I just need to slip in to the pool. Just slip in. I'm nodding off a bit, I think. How ironic to be falling asleep in what What could be a dream? I'll have to ponder the implications of that when I awake. If I awake. Once I just slip in and let the warmth take me.
Steam clears your ears, but your soul is deaf.
Ugh! But what is that? What are those? By God, there's something in the water. It's glowing. They are glowing. Two large oval eyes, glowing bright yellow. A voice, the same as before, except this time much louder, again coming from everywhere, says,
You were right to fear me before.
The water is uneasy. It is sloshing about more fervently. There is something under there, something massive, and now, as much as I wanted to fall into it before, as much as I wanted to let myself fall away, I am now more alert than I ever have been in this place, even though the fog is as thick as it ever has been also, and all I can think about is how far and how fast I can get away from that pool. I'm skittering backwards on my hands, the rocks on the ground are cutting my palms, but it isn't slowing me in the slightest. Turning around now and getting up, I run to an exit which is nowhere to be found. Help! I'm yelling. Someone help me! Someone get me out of here! I say, clambering my palms against the walls and vines. But what am I doing? No one is going to save me. The only two people I met here, the old man and my old lady, are gone, nowhere to be found. I couldn't leave if I had wanted to moments ago, so how could I now?
How easy it would have been for you, who thinks only of himself, to slip away in my presence. Maybe I should have let you, but people like you are never as hasty as they look.
The voice from everywhere says. I turn around so that my back is against the wall and I can see the pool. A creature of unknowable size has surfaced only the top of its head. It looks like a giant crocodile, long reptilian snout, round yellow eyes which protrude from its head, and just below the very surface of the murky and still steamy water, hints of very sharp and harrowing ivory hide under its lips. I try not to move, but my body is commanding me to shake. I'm waiting for something, for the voice from everywhere to again speak, hoping perhaps that it will have mercy on me and tell me how to escape from this beast. But nothing comes. The beast, unblinking, has its eyes fixated directly on me, as though it's waiting for me to make a move. It's just sitting there, a crocodile-like creature the size of the Loch Ness Monster on first glance. Although, is that the hue of its scales? A voice which speaks from everywhere, and it's as if, under the water, I can see a type of white hair or feather or mane? And suddenly I've realized. Are you what has been speaking to me? I ask aloud, looking directly into the eyes of the beast, with still a degree of panic in my voice. Are you the dragon that I saw outside of this place?
So very observant of you, but I may lose my patience if you keep questioning what is self-evident.
The voice says from everywhere. With my eyes on the beast, while the voice, which seems to come from everywhere, speaks, I notice zero movement from the creature and no significant disturbance in the pool. Could it really be this thing that is speaking to me? Okay, I ought to just assume that it is. After all, it seems to be intelligent and impatient, and it's certainly monstrous, so I wouldn't want to get onto its bad side. So, there's a talking dragon and a hot spring before me. No big deal. I'm beginning to loosen up a bit. While the new excess of steam still veils my vision, my mind, perhaps from the shock, finally seems to be clearing up. After all, what more proof do I need before me? There is a giant dragon within a hot spring, within the inside of a house that, by all measures, was smaller than that of said hot spring, and it is speaking to me without moving. I am dreaming. I am dreaming. I take a step forward, albeit still slowly. I suppose my inherent instincts, even while dreaming, only allow me so much courage.
So you've had a change of heart. Yes, come closer. I won't bite.
I'm remembering now what the dragon first said to me before it appeared. Who, not where. As well as what my old lady had said before parting. All of your answers are here. You don't seem to like questions much, I say. But perhaps if I ask the right ones politely, it won't bother you? So, it is with humility that I ask, who are you? It's been what feels like minutes on end, and the dragon has said nothing, nor has it yet even moved an inch. I'm still as well, but I'd be lying to myself if I said the prolonged silence wasn't getting to me. Did I say something wrong? Finally, it speaks.
I am the keeper of this place, and of the secrets within this spring. Long ago I was called by name of the wind, but such things no longer matter.
I'm getting ready to speak again, to ask the dragon in exactly what way, then, that I should address it, expecting it to be done speaking for the moment, for until now it has uttered no more than a handful of words at a time. But the re-emergence of fear within me has shut me up, as I am proven wrong. Swiftly and without warning, a torrent of warm water has crashed over me, and I fall to the floor. Rushing like a geyser through the air, the serpentine-like dragon surfaces itself from the pool, not even fully, but enough so that its body has wrapped itself around two of the large rocks protruding from the spring. I'm staring up at the dragon, my seat on the floor, my fear now matured into awe. On each of the large rocks, which are nestled in the pool several meters apart from one another, the dragon grips the stone with a pair of its exaggerated talons. The middle of its body, partially coiled, rests against the stone terrace behind the pool. What I can still see of it remains below the surface of the water, I imagine, is the rest of its body, of unidentifiable length, concluding with its surface tail. Its body is covered in scales, which are almost feather-like and seem to be tinted with blue hue, though it's difficult to discern color with certainty amidst the steam which is now more plentiful than it has ever been. It has a white mane made of what must be hair or fur or feathers, though it perplexes me how it could be so wet and still manage to look as downy as it does. Finally, I notice in greater detail the crocodile-like face and peaking, sharp, ivory teeth which protrude slightly from its mouth, all of which I had hints of before. So this is what a dragon is. I can't help but examine the creature with deep astonishment. After all, since I have already determined this all to be but a dream, I cannot believe the realness with which this false reality has far outpaced any depictions of dragons I have ever seen represented by artists or by media in the real world. The dragon, now looking down to me, continues his speaking just as a person, who, having done something like merely stand up from their chair, might speak.
Make no mistake, while you would be wise to address me with politeness, it is not questioning that I detest. Many before you have come to my spring in search for knowledge.
This time, the dragon's mouth has widened as it speaks, revealing the monstrous ivory that I predicted. Though it does not close between syllables, and still its voice is coming from everywhere.
No. What I detest are those who come to this place for answers that are only useful to their own self-interests. And it is a shame, really, for it is a fool who comes before me thinking only of themselves, and I have yet to meet a fool that tasted good.
I gulp. Thinking only of themselves. Is it saying that I think only of myself? Surely not, but how am I to know? I say, I do not mean to come here with only myself in mind. However, if I have, then in my defense I'll say that it's difficult to worry about the world when one's own head is in the fog, which in this case, I mean both figuratively and literally. I'm sure you understand.
I am not the one for whom understanding matters. You speak in wise tongue, but it is the ability to see and to listen that are necessary to navigate the fog.
There are questions I could ask, but I still feel as though I must use my questions sparingly. It isn't the right time. I do my best to see what I can and listen when it matters. Perhaps if I had some guidance as to what I was missing, the right questions would come to me, I say.
Man may say that he seeks passage through the forest, but is the guide to believe him if he won't leave his home?
Dear spirit of the spring, I fear that we are splitting hairs with one another, I say.
I have nothing to split.
As it says this, the dragon has risen slightly, its mouth open even more widely, as if laughing.
You humans humor me.
The dragon continues.
For creatures with such short lives, you sure do not seem to mind where the time goes.
I don't understand. Did I dream of a dragon only to trade insults? Luckily, I am not yet enough of a fool to attempt to intentionally insult something that could swallow me without a moment's notice. Whether it be within the confines of a dream or not, you just never know. What is it my ex-wife said earlier? There's so much more for you here. But what does that mean? And what exactly was going on with her anyways? Why am I here, even if it is a dream? Who, not where? That's what the dragon had originally said. It is stuck on my mind. I can't forget it. Does it mean... Oh, but of course. James, my boy. What kind of father am I? That's it. I know what I must ask. Dear spirit of this spring, I say, do you know if I would find my son James here in this place were I to look? And then, by God, the dragon's snout has suddenly moved towards me with such force that a current of air has pushed me back slightly. With its sharp ivory just an arm's length away from my face, I'm grateful that the beast's mouth is now closed. It exhales a bevy of steam through its nostrils, and I have to stand my ground firmly to avoid falling over.
Now then,
it tells me, as the warm steam from its nostrils rustle my clothing.
Finally something worth answering.
I pull back slightly. Even in a dream, this thing is terrifying up close, and the dragon does the same.
You have a son. I know of this boy very well. He has come here before you, but I must say, he is in no good state.
Hearing these words from the dragon, I no longer care about whether or not I'm dreaming. I no longer care about where I am. What does that mean? Is James in trouble? I ask.
There is no point in answering a question to which the answer is already apparent. Instead, I implore you to consider why you came to my spring in the first place.
Why I came to the spring in the first place? If only I knew. Dear spirit, that is a question I've carried with me all along. Since I found myself in front of this cryptic and mysterious place, I was crowded with mystery. It was but mere curiosity which drove me to your dwelling, I say. But as the words have just left my mouth, I'm already questioning them myself. Was it pure curiosity that drove me here? And if so, then why is it I have this strange idea, this strange certainty, that I arrived at this place originally from another location via train? And in order for one to travel, doesn't one have to have a destination in mind? Is it really true, then, that I came upon this place on accident? Or is it more likely that coming upon this place has made me forget my reason for doing so in the first place? Something is telling me that the latter is much more likely.
I can see the battle within you. And make no mistake, it is a battle. I have seen many a human before you derive conflict from within. Your son did just the same.
My son? My son was here? Dear spirit, I say, I can no longer claim to know anything. I am but a lost soul. I know that before you become irate that I would ask only questions about myself, about whether or not I am but in a dream, and so on. But now there's only one question I need to know the answer to. Is my son in danger? And if so, How can I save him? I look the dragon directly in the eye as I say this. Please, I think, understand my solemnity. The dragon is shifting now. It has moved from supporting itself with the two large rocks in the center of the pool to being supported almost entirely by the stone terrace at the back, not without causing the water to stir significantly. The fog is so thick now that much of the dragon's body is obscured in its elevation. Moving its head back down closer to the pool and me, the dragon now seems to have a body that floats above clouds, while its head pokes through like the head of a mighty god come to judge.
Your son's life is in danger. There is no other way to put it. He lay in a bed, unconscious, surrounded by loved ones. When his spirit visited me, I provided answers for many questions, but they did not serve him well. As keeper only of the secrets of this spring, it is not my place to know whether these insufficiencies were born from the faults of your son, or if the life presented to him has simply been less than adequate. I am merely here to guide the path of those who seek to improve a world outside of their own.
Please, tell me what I can do to save him.
Of course, I will tell you, but first I'm afraid I require a sacrifice.
I pause for a moment. A sacrifice? It can't mean... A sacrifice, I ask. Of what magnitude? Can I give a possession of mine, or perhaps, though I do not wish to part with it, I would even give a limb or anything to save my boy from harm?
Since the spring holds the knowledge you need to save a life, in return, another life must be given.
A life? But surely it doesn't mean, well... A life? I ask. But what life do I have to give? Surely I cannot give my own if I need to use it to save the life of my son. The dragon is tilting its head. Its lips curve as if to smile.
I believe it is now time for me to ask a question of you, human. If giving your life to me would save your boy from the infinite despair of this world, would you give it?
My own life. Would I give it? James, my little boy, my child, my son, what would my life be without you? What would be the purpose of a father to go on living without his son? How could I... But also, how could I... Give my own life? I ask. Why, of course he is my son.
You hesitate, human. Is it not enough that your child's life would be saved? And to think that I offer to save him from the infinite despair of this world, what more could a parent possibly live for?
Oh, dear spirit, I am struck by my hesitation as well. If only I could tell you why I hesitated, but I do not want my boy to suffer on behalf of my selfishness. And after all, what am I thinking? I should be so lucky as to be able to die for my son, should I not? Why is it then that I hesitated? That I hesitated now? Well, I'm not so sure. I have no reason to.
We have a guest,
the dragon says, interrupting my vocal thought. I train my eyes to the spot where the dragon seems to be looking, behind me, where it would seem the hallway which I used originally to enter this room with the hot spring has reopened. Now walking towards us and the pool is the old man from the shower room, stark naked and with shriveled genitals. Looking at him now, just as he's about to cross my path, I note his face again. He looks so familiar. Why is it I cannot fully recognize him? Walking straight past me, he only gives me a slight glance before he moves on towards the pool of the water. He stops when he reaches the tip of the pool and looks up at the dragon. The dragon, staring back, moves his head as if to nod. What is going on? Once more the old man looks back at me. This time he smiles, a half-open mouth smile, proving to me that it is indeed possible that he may recognize me. Then, suddenly and without warning, the dragon says from everywhere,
"It looks as though a sacrifice has been made."
just before opening up its enormous jaws and swallowing the old man whole. "No!" I yell. "Why?" At first, I bolt forward as if to save the old man from the beast. Then, realizing that the beast could just as easily do the same to me, I pause in my tracks. I can see an outline of a small, relative to the size of the dragon, bump, representing the old man's body as it moves through the belly of the beast.
"If you so wish, the spring will provide you with all the answers you seek. It is not often that I take interest in the affairs of humans, but your boy struck me as someone worth saving. Good luck."
And with that, the dragon has launched itself from the rock. Water and steam explode from the surface of the pool as the beast tunnels into the water. The warm wave knocks me to the ground again. Within a moment, the dragon is nowhere to be seen. I get to my feet and run over to the pool. A dream. It's only a dream, Big Al. You're dreaming, and soon you'll wake up. I stop at the edge of the pool. I look down. Between the darkness of the depths of the pool and the proliferated steam, I can't see anything. I think of James. I think of my ex-wife telling me that he is here. I think of the drawings he used to show me as a little boy, of the public swimming pool we used to love to go to together in our old town. And it's all coming back now. My boy, James, he's in the hospital. He was in an accident. He's in critical condition. How could I have forgotten these things? The doctors say that he isn't going to make it, that there's no chance. I came here on a train, looking for answers, looking for information, looking for anything that could save my boy. It's all so clear now. What was the other thing my ex-wife said to me while I was here? Does someone who's awake ever ask whether or not they're dreaming? No. Not usually they don't, but nuance is important. If I was in an accident too, say the same accident that left my son in the condition he's in, I might be a little foggy, to say the least, and might not realize whether or not the unreality before me was a dream or not. But I know now. I know what I must do, and I cannot fail. I cannot let my son rot away. Before jumping into the pool, I closed my eyes, and now that I've opened them, nothing's changed. That's good enough for me. I take the plunge. The warmth of the spring swallows me. As I swim fervently to get to the bottom of the pool, there's nothing but darkness. I can't call for help. I will surely drown. But I'm listening for anything that will help me save my son. Anything that will help my little boy. I'm growing unconscious. I can feel it. The warmth. It's taking me. I close my eyes. In a hospital, somewhere in a distant city, a young man opens his eyes. Unexpectedly, a bright light floods his sight. He's squinting, but can see that there is someone in front of him. A woman. Though he's slightly delirious, he could still hear what she's saying. She's saying, "James? Darling, my boy, my sweet darling boy. You're awake! Doctor, look! He's awake! It's a miracle!